how to break free from the rat race mindset that keeps so many people stuck. Where were you and what happened to get you into, I gotta be a coach?
When I finished college, I started a media production company. Oh, okay, so if I've done this in my life, I need to do bigger and more as an entrepreneur next. I lost my mom when I was 13. My mom took my own life, and I didn't deal with it until I was in my mid-20s.
What mattered the most? What were things that you'd say, this, thank goodness I did this or met that person, because that was a game changer?
It might be surprising, but learning to be by myself and be at peace with myself was the biggest one. It's not about information, it's about experience. I'm in pain, this is uncomfortable.
Most people worry about things that never happen in life. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Game Changer Podcast. My name is Michelle Dutro. I am your host, and I am thrilled to be here. I've got a little string going of Navy SEAL fit, just a men extraordinaire thing happening in my world, and today is no exception. I really have been excited for this conversation. Without further ado, let me just tell you who is on the screen here with me and who you are going to get to join here. My guest today is Tripp Lanier. You would think Lanier, if you were in France, that's what they would be calling him, and he, quite frankly, wouldn't answer. Is a professional coach, author, and host of the New Man podcast, which has helped thousands of men around the world move beyond fear, self-doubt, and societal expectations. This book will make you dangerous right here. You know, you're going to want to see, I've got some placeholders. You're going to want out and grab that copy. Women, same. This is not just for men, and we're going to get into that. It's not about aggression. It's about courage. It's a guide for those who refuse to settle for a life that feels safe but unfulfilling. In this conversation, we're going to explore, get ready for it here, Tripp, because this is what we're doing. We're going to explore the philosophy behind living with freedom, ease, meaning, and fun. The lessons he's learned from coaching everyone from entrepreneurs to Navy SEALs, as I mentioned. How to break free from the rat race mindset that keeps so many people stuck. Men and women alike. So that said, did I leave anything out that folks need to know about you before we jump in?
Yeah. Hope I can step up.
Okay, that's funny. So let's just dive right in, because I do want your wisdom and your advice to go out to, everybody and anybody listening. And I do have some friends of mine personally who are very excited about this chat. But before we dive into advice as a fantastic men's coach, let's go back, because you weren't always a coach. So I'm always interested when people get into coaching, what they were doing in life and what happened, whether it was a string of events or some aha moment, or what happened for you to say, I'm switching roles and this is what I'm doing now. So where were you and what happened to get you into, I got to be a coach?
Great question. Let's see. I think the way to ease into this was I was a really creative young person. And when I finished college, I started a media production company like 5 months after I graduated. And that's the great thing about being young, is you're so delusional. It's like, I could do this. No, how hard could it be? And I was fortunate enough to do pretty well in that business. It was a small business, but I was able to really design it to have a lifestyle that I wanted to have and have a lot of freedom, be able to travel, those types of things. But I also, on another path in my life, I was feeling rather empty. And I was able to see at an early age that kind of more money and more of this kind of stability wasn't really going to check the boxes that I really wanted for myself. And through some other events that happened around that time, I became much more aware of my inner world, became much more aware of my emotional world, my spiritual world, and became kind of a personal growth, spiritual growth junkie. And I was going to all these retreats, and I was sitting on a beach with a new friend in Costa Rica, and he's like, man, you'd be a really good coach. And I was like, like Little League, or what are we talking about here? And he explained to me what coaching was. And I was like, wow, I've been having these in-depth conversations with people my whole life, it seems like, and I didn't know that this could actually be a career. And so that put my eye on that ball, but it took a few years, and it was really confronting for me to become a coach. I had one foot out the door. I was really afraid to become a coach for quite a long time. So I don't want to make it sound romantic. Like I found it, it's like I did find it, and then I was scared to death of it for quite a while. But then once I was both feet in, it's been, about 20 years now.
So and I have several questions on this journey of yours, but just on this point of the trepidation and not wanting to dive right in, was that, am I walking the talk? Am I somebody who is saying, hey, here's how to live your life and how to lead it? And, am I doing that? Was that part of your hesitation, or what was the holdback? Because I have a lot of friends that are coaches that just won't take that leap. And for them, that's what it is. What if somebody called me out? What if they, said, oh, well, what about that post from 3 years ago? You didn't seem very kind back then, Lucy. So what was the thing for you?
And Lucy, right? Like,
I know, I'm telling you, it's no good. It's no good.
I mean, that was definitely part of it. I think another part of it was just feeling the exposure of just putting myself out there. I had been professionally before. I kind of hid behind a brand. I hid behind, a logo, and it wasn't about me necessarily. I hired someone to work with me, and I had people that took care of things. So I was able to hide in that regard. And then in another, I think in a more egoic or in a sense of significance, I was still subscribing to this script of like bigger, more, and, okay, so if I've done this in my life, I need to do bigger and more as an entrepreneur next. And becoming a coach and trading my time for money essentially seemed like a big step backwards. And egoically, I fought with that. And it was quite a process to let that go and just be like, this is what I freaking love to do. I love to do this, and I'm going to do it whether I get paid or not, and just relax that stuff. But there were a lot of like hooks to take out of that and just get out of my own way so that I could do that.
So this, on the point of putting yourself out there, again, I know for a fact, plenty of people are listening, and that is their Achilles heel is, well, what are people going to say, about me? And here comes the judgment and everything else. What were some of the things that you were most worried about that might happen that either did, and how did you handle it, or never did? Like, I was so worried that, I was going to get this judgment, or that I was going to get called out in this way. And then did it happen? Because most people worry about things that never happen in life.
Yeah, I'll kind of take a different tack on that. Like I got to a point where I was going through these coaching trainings and my head was so full of what to do and how to get it right, and how my coach would do it this way and this other coach would do it that way. And I was coaching people. And as I'm sitting with them, I was just in this, Steve Chandler calls it the room of mirrors, where it's just like, all I can think about is myself and my performance and how the next thing is going to get me fired and I'm a fraud and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I freaking hate coaching. Like, it's not fun anymore. And I just worried all the time. And I didn't feel confident in myself because my head was so full of information and this critic going left and right, finding all the ways that I could be vulnerable. And so I said, well, if I'm going to get fired, I might as well get fired on my own terms. Like, I might as well coach in a way that I think feels right for me. Like I'm still coming from a place of service. And if they're going to fire me, then they're going to fire me. But I don't want to be fired because I'm trying to be somebody else.
Right.
And so I just relaxed and I was like, cool, I'm done. I'm going to get fired. I'm just going to start letting it loose and like really try to serve the F out of people. And it got more fun, but people just really served. Like, people were like, this is so impactful. This is so like, it just took off. And I got more and more powerful. The coaching got more and more powerful. People were way more satisfied with that because I wasn't tiptoeing around and withholding and, oh gosh, I don't want to upset anybody and that kind of thing. And once I was okay with that, and I was okay, and I make an agreement with all of my clients to this day, which is like, I'm willing to be fired in any given session because I'm willing to say what might not be comfortable for you to hear. And I'm okay if you're not okay with that, but I want you to know where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a place of service. That's ultimately what I want to try to do. And if you don't like it and you want to fire me, I understand, but I'm not going to withhold that. I want you to know that I'm never leaving anything on the table.
So how much, if at all, does this practice and this way of being and who you ultimately became as a coach translate to you in life, on how authentically you show up for friends and family and yourself versus tiptoeing around, or I don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or, I could be honest here, but, what's that going to do in the relationship? And it's just easier to, go along to get along. So how much of Tripp is Tripp all the time
Well, I would say that that's coach Tripp because I have agreements with those people to show up that way. I put on my coaching hat and they are paying me for that service. They're paying for me to be that way. When I'm trying to be that way with my wife, or I try to be that way with my teenage daughter, or I try to be that way with friends, we don't have those agreements. And so I can be skillful and I can be compassionate, say, hey, if you're open to something, I have something that might be helpful and I might want to share. And I'll do that with friends and I'll do that with my wife and my daughter. Usually my daughter's like, no, I don't want to hear it. But but it's different because we have those agreements. Like this is what our relationship is about. And my wife and I are very much in agreement around that too, but we're also really in agreement. Like she's a coach, she's a therapist. We don't start working on me without my permission.
Right.
We're
That's a good
lovers
one.
first, we're partners first, and you can hire a coach for this help and I'll support you to hire a coach and I can hire a coach, but it's not your job to be my coach.
Yes.
And so it's really understanding that there's a dance there, like there is a friendship here. And with certain friends, like guys I've been in men's groups with, like we're willing to go very deep. Hey, we're going to serve each other in that regard. But we also do it with care and we do it with permission. Like, hey, I've got some feedback for you. Let me know when you're open to hearing it. Not just bam, out of the blue.
Right. You're nonstop.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've kind of caught up to current Tripp life. Let's go back. Because like I said, I had a few questions with your journey. Again, I think a lot of people can relate to that sort of transition time and being the role of the seeker. Something had to have happened besides this is just maybe it didn't. I don't know. But I do know that for most people, it's usually not just, I'm sitting back and reflecting on my life and it turns out it's unfulfilling. I'm going to go find a retreat to figure it out. Was there anything that was a 2x4, if you will, upside the head that said, this is just not a way of life for me anymore? Like, I just don't want to be behind the camera or whatever it is you were doing that said, I need to figure me out. This is not right.
Yeah, there was a lot. And it was a bit of a 2x4. I lost my mom when I was 13. My mom took my own life and I didn't deal with it until I was in my mid-20s. And essentially the life that I had created around that was all defense. The relationships I had would only go so far. The intimate relationships, I was avoiding any kind of intimacy, any kind of challenge. I mean, just really fragile in that regard. But my way of dealing with it was to be a bit grandiose or to be kind of posture and puff myself up. And so on the outside, it looked like I was really confident and had my shit together. But in reality, I was terrified. And constantly like, okay, navigating this conversation so it doesn't get too vulnerable and make sure we can avoid these conversations, etc. There's a lot of that. And it was normalized. I had no idea that wasn't how to live life. And it also meant that I wasn't interested in exploring life. I was afraid of new ideas. I was afraid of philosophy. I was afraid of spirituality. I was afraid of so many things. And so through a series of events, I was dating a girl, we were living together and she left and like, yeah, I grieved her, but then it was like, it just uncorked all the other stuff. And so I spent a good few weeks just losing my shit and I lost like 30 pounds and like just went through the ringer emotionally. And after moving through that period and grieving and getting on the other side, there was this like, what the heck was that? Like, what did I just go through? I want to understand that. I think so I wouldn't have to deal with that again. There was a bit of that, but then there was also just like, I wasn't afraid to be sad anymore. I wasn't afraid of my emotional world anymore. I'd just been through it, like through the ringer. It was like, okay, I know what this feels like. And I don't know if that's so much true today. I think I've, kind of gotten a bit more defensive around my emotions since that period. But I was in such a raw place that I wanted to learn. Like I started reading voraciously. This was before any internet in the home. And so I was just by myself, like not dating anybody, just reading and just devouring as much as I could and wanting to explore personal growth, wanting to explore spirituality, etc. And so that just kind of put me on the path of just what is this life all about?
which makes sense. And I get that when we get to the point of I got nothing left to lose. This is the dark night of the soul here.
Mm.
I may as well keep going. Of the things you did, you mentioned some retreats and books and mentors and people. When you look back, what are the things that were most impactful for you, that had the most meaning, that really helped sort of lift the fog and provide clarity for where you were headed and who Tripp is in this lifetime? Because I know that people listening, there are now, with the internet, 20 million options. Everybody's a coach. Everybody's got something else to teach. Everybody's got an online course. So back even with the things that you had access to, of the things that you dove into, what mattered the most? What were things that you'd say, this, thank goodness I did this or met that person, because that was a game changer?
It might be surprising, but learning to be by myself and be at peace with myself was the biggest one.
Mm.
There's a difference between solitude and isolation. And isolation is what we can draw ourselves into when we feel vulnerable and we don't want to be seen and we don't want to be exposed. And that's a fearful state. That's a defensive position. I'm a wounded animal, so I'm going to isolate. I'm going to get away. Nobody can see me. Nothing can eat me over here. That's different than solitude, which is I went from like not being okay with being alone to like enjoying being alone, getting on a plane and going somewhere and exploring someplace. And it was okay. Going to a concert by myself if I wanted to, being in my home without the TV on, without music, and just enjoying being with myself in that regard. And so I meet a lot of people, especially young people that can't be with themselves. They need to constantly be stimulated, and not realizing that they're kind of afraid of themselves. They're their own biggest enemy in that regard. And I think that if we can't be with ourselves in that regard, then we're always trying to run away from ourselves. And that kind of dovetails into the Vipassana retreats and just learning to just shut the F up and be with yourself. There's no place to hide. There's nowhere to run. And that can be really confronting as well. It's not about information. It's about experience. And it's about the experience of being with oneself. It's not about escaping anything. It's like, can I really actually be here? I'm in pain. This is uncomfortable. I'm sick of hearing this stupid Chicago song in my head for the 500th time today. Like, can I be with this and learn to be with me?
So is that an assignment, if you will, that when you are meeting somebody new and someone's signed up to work with you, and you can tell they fill every minute of their day with some sort of noise, with some sort of distraction, with some sort of chatter, what does that look like from a Tripp now saying, hey, okay, here's step one. Here's what I want you to do. What does that assignment look like? Because there are some few people that come to mind for me right now that I will, when I say, hey, how about this? Start here. When you get in the car, don't turn anything on. And that lasts about 2.5 seconds. And well, I just thought instead of a podcast, listening to music would be okay. And you just hear the negotiations on there's no such thing as quiet in their mind, quiet in their head. So what does that look like for you when you see someone that's
I've definitely prescribed, I've challenged my clients that are these kind of personal, like these information junkies, like they just can't get enough information, but it's really just entertainment. Like they just need stuff coming in, and there's a little bit of a high that they get from a new idea, but it's never integrated. It's never something that they bring in their life. And instead it kind of goes into the pile of things they should be doing. And they feel worse about themselves because now they have 171 things they need to be doing better instead of just 170. And so I've been like, yeah, cut out the podcast, like quit listening, go live your life, go do things, go be with people, turn off the stimulation in that regard. I would probably, in that regard, I would probably have the conversation in such a way where I would want to help them realize for themselves, like maybe I should cut this back. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Let's follow that. So I'd probably lead that conversation where it was their idea. If I come out of the gate and be like, you should shut this down, there's a bit more rebelliousness. So.
Got it. Okay. So for now where current life, you've kind of had a bit of exploration time that got you on the path that you're on now. I know that your background includes a bit of plant medicine. Yep. I'm curious as to when and why that showed up. it has become a lot more accessible, a lot more mainstream. There's a lot more reasons why people are looking into this, from anxiety to PTSD to increasing creativity, fill in the blank. Some people that should, some people that should not. And so from your background and perspective, how did that show up for you, and what was the ultimate outcome, if you will, from whatever that was?
Well, I think it's interesting. I was resistant to plant medicine. Kind of we all have a dogmas that we fall into, whether we realize it or not. And so, kind of the path of meditation and spiritual growth that I was a part of was largely against it. It was seen as an escape, or it was seen as a shortcut, or it was seen as something that wasn't really supportive of the work. And so in my mind, I'd kind of poo-pooed it, like, oh, well, that's just, whatever. It diminished it. The real work was sitting on the cushion. And I did that for a few years. And then I was like, whatever, it's not going to hurt or anything. And I think that the first experience I had was with psilocybin. I had a beautiful experience. And I think from that experience, it really helped my sitting practice and my daily practice. It gave me much more of a clearer sense of a North Star or a guiding compass heading for that, for the spiritual work that I was doing. And I could see where it sprinkled in those types of experiences weren't a replacement for the regular day-to-day efforts. And they certainly weren't an escape. I never saw them as an escape in that regard. Because quite frankly, for me, I tend to have really, really challenging experiences when I do medicine.
So what happened to take you from very resistant to, there was a moment of, I'm not having any part of this. I think it's an escape, to, all right, I'll try. Let me see
It
what
was
this
just,
is about.
I think I'm just learning of any kind of dogma or any kind of like hard black and white thing was something to challenge for me. Life is not lived in the black and whites; it's in the grays. And so it was like, oh well, what's the big deal? Like, just do it and see for yourself. Don't take somebody else's word for it.
So is any part of that your current life? Is this part of your practice or part of your things that you integrate to keep grounded and, tapped into the best version of yourself, if you will?
Yeah, I would say I've put it on pause. I had a journey couple of years ago that was really, really tough. And I my body has been like, and my brain's been like, let's take a break. And it was really, really rough. I gained a lot from it, but my attitude towards the medicine, I have a huge regard for it and support it for other people to go do it. But for me, it feels like I'm on pause for now.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So from your perspective, if someone is coming to you saying, "Hey, I've been doing a lot of reading. I've had all my input here on this is another possibility." Just from your personal experience, what are some questions somebody should ask before, running off to, for California? It's, oh, I'm going to go to Joshua Tree for the weekend. I, saw this ad on Eventbrite that this is what's happening. What are some things for you that are a bit more cautionary of, hey, don't take this lightly and this isn't for everyone? So if someone's listening right now and they're thinking about it, what's your advice?
If you're looking for a silver bullet, stop. Like right there. I mean, a lot of men, especially, that are not wanting to actually do the work and not wanting to face things, not want to talk about things. And I understand there's a limitation to how much you can do on the couch talking, but nonetheless, they don't want to experience. They don't want to be with it at all. So they've heard about this, and it's like, this is my key. This is going to answer all the problems, and I can get it myself and go get a tent and camp out in the woods and go fix myself. And I think that that's a really unwise move. Those that want to work with really reputable healers and not backyard shamans, I'm much more like, yes, work with somebody that can really help you, guide you through these experiences. I mean, in my experience, like I've done meditation retreats and there needed to be a therapist on site because there were people freaking out and having a hard time there. And it was basically like, keep sitting. So it was like, there needs to be an integration of when you're having these experiences, do you have support that'll help you move through those things and help you make sense of them? And so just having some guy that decides he's going to be a shaman, this weekend is it's not okay with me.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
Um, and so it's just like these expectations. And if they're just seeking an escape, I think for some of us that we're just seeking an escape and there's this altered state and it's like, hey, my life's kind of dreary and mundane. And then I'm going to go be with love and light for a few hours. And like, that's beautiful. But we can kind of get hooked on that. Like, I just want to get away from this life. And if hopefully the medicine is to help you bring something back into this life instead of wanting to escape this life.
So that's a great segue for this as we're wrapping things up, and I want to get into specific coaching and who you work with and the patterns that you see. So you've worked with enough folks over the decades, whether it's the corporate IT guy or a Navy SEAL or entrepreneur business owner. What are some commonalities? Obviously, enough that you were able to write a book, which is very good and entertaining and interesting. It's every bit. It's you. It's well done.
Thank you.
I do encourage everybody. There's going to be a link on this to check it out. But the commonalities that you see that it kind of really doesn't matter what their background is, that time and time again show up with folks. What are those that you? So if somebody's listening again and they're thinking, oh, I'm the only one that's got this problem. I'm the only one that faces these challenges, to go, yeah, they're pretty common. What is that you see in your world?
There's some big ones. One is that there's this finish line. We're going to get to this finish line and whatever problems we have are going to go away. One of my former coaches, Phil Stutz, talks about this. He calls it the velvet rope. He calls it exoneration. It's like the velvet rope club. It's like, I get there and I get my special jacket and I don't have any of these problems anymore and I'm set for life. And set for life doesn't mean just I got an X amount in the bank. It's like, I'm done. I don't have to worry about things anymore. I'll always be comfortable. I'll always be certain. Everybody's going to kiss my ass from here on out. I'm never going to have any problems. And even though that sounds ridiculous coming out of my mouth, a lot of us are still buying into that. There's still this thing of like, my life is on hold. What I really want to do is on hold until I get there. And a lot of us are like, I just have to get to this place and then I'm good. And we'll spend our whole lives chasing that and continue to keep moving the goalposts or continue to keep moving that finish line and essentially miss out on our lives. And so that's a really sad thing. And a lot of folks will kind of reach a certain nihilism, like, what the hell? Like I thought it was supposed to be different by now. I thought when I got here, it wasn't going to feel like this. And so there's a lot of that going on and we don't recognize it because it's so culturally common that we're all kind of chasing this finish line that we don't realize that we're doing it and that it's really working against us. And so that's the number one thing. And I think another one, because I tend to work with high achiever types, that their self-worth and their identity is really tied to what they're accomplishing. And look at me, I've achieved X, Y, and Z, and that becomes empty as well. Like after a while, it's just like, I don't know who I am if I'm not doing X, Y, or Z. And maybe in our 20s, it was fun and we kind of had a sense of identity. But as we get older, the question of who am I really starts to scare us a bit. I'm not that guy anymore, but I also don't know who I am. Who am I if I'm not this guy moving up the ladder, or I'm not this person who has these women, or whatever these things, these things that support my sense of self-worth and identity. And so the work that I love to help people do is like, what are we doing now, today? Not just in a hedonistic way. That's not what I mean, but it's like, what is our life? What really represents what we want in this life, the experiences we want in this life, not just one day, but today. But then also, who are you really? Like, who are you really when you're not living this prescribed life of what you should be doing, what you're supposed to be doing, and all of that stuff? Like, what are you really here to give and become? There's something in here, in you, that wants to be lived through you and as you. And my work, I hope, is to help draw that out and help them align with that.
And don't you see that as well with the folks that have retired from the military or ex-NFL football player, that their identity was so with what they were doing. And then here's the goal. One day I'm going to retire and have all the money. Then you retire and have all the money and hit rock bottom and go, now what?
Yeah,
right? Who am I?
It's way more common with people that have done extraordinary stuff. Like the kind of the more extraordinary their lives have been and what they've accomplished in their identity, the more they've got at stake. Like coming back to more of grounded, humble level is really difficult. And we don't like going, quote, backwards in that
Right.
regard. Like we don't like losing. It feels like loss
Right.
to kind of take some of that stuff away.
The now what becomes a lot harder to find a compelling future when we think that what was compelling is behind us. And
Yeah, and
right?
also maybe it doesn't light us up to do that thing anymore. Like
Yeah.
you're in your 40s and 50s and you're competing against guys in your 20s. Like, what are you doing? It's
Right.
not your game.
Right.
You're at a different stage of your life. You have something that way more valuable to offer than trying to keep up with these young bucks. So what's really the game you're here to play now, not who you've been.
And I'll tell you, if there's anything in this conversation that I think actually applies more to women than men, it's that. It's the women that age and are in competition with, the latest, what was it, Victoria's Secret runway show that's on every magazine and all over social media of, here you are, your mid-40s, mid-50s, somehow thinking that that's your competition. Oh, I don't look that like that. And at some point, you have to level set all of that competition and say, what is this competition about? And what is your end game? And why does this matter? And what matters to you? And what do you value, really? Which I think a lot of people maybe figure out what they, or attempt to figure out what they value in their 20s and 30s and then never revisit it. So now we're mid 40s and 50s and have no idea what really matters and why. Why does that thing actually matter? So on that note, what is that for you? So here you are, coach extraordinaire, author, public speaker, everywhere. I mean, you truly are doing amazing work. What is it that you most identify with, or more importantly, don't, that brings you your significance or your value that would say, hey, if this title went away, take the title coach away, and I'm still good? How do you get there right now in life?
I keep this on my desk, and it's the North Star. That's it. What would love do in any given situation? What does that mean? It's helping me identify what that is. Love can be fierce. Love can be incredibly accepting and forgiving. But it's always coming back to that. Like, I love you so much, I'm not going to let you get in your own way. I love you so much, I'm not going to let you betray yourself in this way. And like, that's it. That's it. Like, it's coming back to that over and over again. And if I can help someone tap into that for themselves, then they know what to do. My job is to support them, never to tell them what to do. It's just to help them come back to that.
So this book, because I know that when you're talking, and it's what you're speaking of right now, this book will make you dangerous. We're not talking about how to become an Army Ranger sniper. It's not that kind of dangerous, right? Is living into your truth in an uncompromising fashion. And I think that I would say from the folks that I work with, the thing that they find most scary is, what if I did that? I was my authentic self. I truly lived into why I think I'm here in life. And I took these two crazy advice and I put myself out there. I took that risk and I fail. And now what? I failed at being me. Because see, if I fail at all the other things that aren't me, I'm somewhat okay with that. Well, whatever, it really didn't matter anyway. But if I put myself out there as my truest, rawest, most authentic self, and that bombs, where in the world do I go from here? Because I can't have that happen. So the way that I won't have that happen is I just won't ever take that risk, which is the biggest risk of all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we're up against, right?
Yeah. So in this chapter 6 that says, be playful, minimize risk, and create on your own terms. What do I do so that I'm not uncomfortable? What do I do so that I don't risk losing something I care about? What do I do so that I don't look like a bozo? I said this book is really good. And there you have questions throughout this entire book, and I love it because it does get you to check in with yourself in a real and authentic way. And it's often not about the things that we're not willing to do, but what are we doing that is the bigger compromise, right? What are we doing that's not being authentically true to ourselves. That when you said about your early days, you were trying to be a coach that was someone else's formula, someone else's line of questions, someone else's way of showing up. So if you were to leave people, you get one legacy in life that is, wow, here's the words of wisdom of Tripp Lanier that he left everybody with, that meant something, and that you were like, if you remembered one thing about me that was the best advice I could give, what is that?
I would say learn to tap into what love really means for you. And I'm not talking about just our love for others, or our love for friends or our favorite football team or something like that. But there is a sense, I use the word love, you can call it God, you can call it whatever, but there's just a sense of this deeper truth. And most of us are so identified with me, what's my thing. And we all have that. That's not going to go away, but it gets grossly out of perspective when we don't have something else grounding it. And I think this is where the medicine can really help us in that regards. It can give us that pow. A lot of times it can help us have that deep grounded experience of that expansiveness and that love, and realize that we are arising out of that, and that we're here to give and create from that place. So whatever it is that helps you tap into that, what is it what am I a product of that I'm here to create and to give? And if we can learn to tap into that, I call it love, then I find that just things get a lot easier. The small stuff, we don't have to sweat the small stuff as much. We can kind of put things in perspective and just say, yeah, what would love do in this scenario? I'm going to let this shit go, but I am going to fight fiercely for this.
Yeah, agreed. What am I committed to? Okay, as we are wrapping up, and anybody out there is saying, I just would love more of this advice, more learning, more teaching, more growing. What are the ways that people can find you? And what are the ways that anybody could, if it's a possibility, that somebody could work with you? What does that look like?
Well, first thing is you can learn more about the coaching work that I do at tripplanier.com. I've been doing a podcast since 2007 called The New Man, and that's available wherever you find podcasts. And then there's the book, This Book Will Make You Dangerous, which is available on Amazon as well. So those are all inroads to get a kind of glimpse into the work that I do and how I help people. And if that, that rubs you the right way, then you can reach out and we'll start a conversation.
Perfect. And like I said, all of that will be in show notes. So make it very easy for you to find all of that and live your best, most dangerous, authentic life. I always close every show with the same question. So, Tripp Lanier, what is one thing, I feel like I already know the answer to this. We'll see if I'm right. What is one thing that you absolutely believe to be true?
Love, baby.
I knew it. Yeah. Yeah.
I used to be so scared to talk like that. Like, it was like, oh, this is so uncool. And it's just like, man, it is the most scary thing to do. It is so scary to tell your friend, your brother, that you love him. Oh, we'll cry over his casket. I miss you, buddy. I love you so much, but we won't tell him face to face. We'll tell our parents we got a beef with our brother or whatever. It's just like we hold that in and it kills us inside.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate this immensely, and I think it's a fabulous note to end on, and it certainly is something that this world needs a whole lot more of right now. Is we've got lots of conflict and separation and reasons to, keep that group of people apart from us, and that's not serving anyone. So thank you for these words of wisdom. I appreciate it. I appreciate your energy. I most appreciate your authenticity in how you speak and how you write and how you show up, because you're a great example for everybody to be a whole lot more of who they are and less of who they think they should be for whatever reason they bought into that back in the day. So thank you. Very much appreciated for your time here today.
Thanks, Michelle. I had fun.
And thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Game Changer Podcast.